Call this November 23rd, 2021 regular meeting of the Burlington Board of Health to order. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm Ed Weiner, Chairman, and with me remotely this evening are board members, Vice Chair David McSweeney, Mary Beth Welch, Andrea Sheehan, and Dr. Wayne Saltzman. Also with us this evening is Susan Luminello, the Director of Public Health, Christine Mathis, our Environmental Engineer, Dawn McDowell, our Recording Secretary, and again, we are live on BCAT and available for appropriate discussion through this video technology. We have minutes from September 28th and October 12th. Let's first take a look at September 28th. September 28th, are there any errors or omissions? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mary Beth Wells, second by Dr. Saltzman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. And now, October 12th, 2021. Are there any errors, omissions, additions? If not, I'd like a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Saltzman, second by?
Second.
David McSweeney. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Citizens' time, I guess there is nobody here for citizens' time. Is there anybody online who would like to address the board?
No one, Mr. Chairman. There's no signed on.
There is nobody? Okay, we will move on to Chairman's report. As I do each meeting, I want to acknowledge our professional staff, our board members, and all those town departments that you've worked so hard for their commitment for the town, especially during the pandemic. Thank you for BCAT. I thank you every meeting, all you do to keep this community so well informed. In the past weeks, I've urged every adult to consider the COVID vaccine, and recently also urged parents to consider vaccinating their kids. Why? Because unfortunately, the pandemic is still with us. As we move indoors, COVID cases numbers are again beginning to soar. The state currently is reporting around 7,000 new cases a day, with the highest new numbers between the ages of 20 and 40. The Massachusetts 7-day average, as of yesterday, positivity rate was 3.07. It's way up again. Burlington, a little lower at 2.58, but still high. Be careful, get the shot, get the booster, and urge your family, friends to do the same. You and your family are very precious. I said this last meeting. Why take the chance? And don't forget, flu season is now with us. Time for your flu shot. If you have any questions, the Board of Health is here to discuss anything, any discussion, any issues that you may have. Our website is a great resource, and most of all, just a call away, 781-270-1955. And lest I forget, on behalf of the Board of Health and its professional staff, have a healthy and safe Thanksgiving holiday. I always ask members of our board during the chairman's report, is anything they'd like to add or any comments whatsoever? Good. Applications, special permit 10 Corporate Drive. Please, for those people online, please state your name and sign in. Please print so Ms. McDowell can get your correct spellings.
Especially for those of you who have seen Mr. Buckley's signature, please print.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Robert Buckley, Reamer and Bronstein. I have with me this evening Scott Weiss, from the Gutierrez Company, the applicant for a special permit for 10 Corporate Drive, which, for orientation, it's the first building as you go into Burlington Corporate Center, next to Lindana. Sits up on the hill a little bit, right at the corner. And we're here, it's sort of a unique situation. That was the first planned development district in Burlington, 1987, I believe. And clearly they have become more sophisticated, better defined in some of the uses, that the uses that were attractive back then were not attractive now, and vice versa. So the laboratory use is permitted, but it's not as broad as your current definition. So early on, we met with staff, Christine, and we're seeking a special permit to attract a lab user or users for the building. But recognizing the role that the Board of Health plays, we revised the application, and to require us to come, any user will have to come back to the Board of Health for your various permits and oversight. So while it was a different time, different era, the use is the same, but we provided the same protections to the town and the community in the review process. And Christine has given us some draft conditions that we've reviewed, and we're very comfortable with them.
So,
Christine, would you like to make any comments?
Sure. As Mr. Buckley noted, it is an existing building. It's currently permitted for office space. They're looking to change it to laboratory light manufacturing, seeking biotechnology, life sciences tenants. The tenants themselves will manage their own hazardous materials and their own hazardous waste. The only minor difference here is that the applicant is seeking to operate a centralized wastewater treatment system, and that would collect the wastewater, wash water really, from each tenant's lab sinks and gravity feed that into a centralized wastewater treatment plant that will basically be a water neutralization operation. It will use acid and bases to neutralize the water to neutral pH prior to discharge through a Massachusetts Water Resources Authority industrial discharge permit. I did contact the MWRA permit coordinator for Burlington and a few other towns. She's very familiar with this type of operation. She's overseen them in many other local communities, including Bedford. She said that it's a very common setup for multi-tenanted life science facilities. It's a fairly straightforward system. Basically, as I said, gravity feed into a holding tank, then a mixing tank for the addition of the neutralization chemicals. The chemicals will be stored in in chemical cabinets that are their secondary containment, and the system is fully automated with local and remote alarms. It's not that we don't have wastewater treatment and pH neutralization systems in town. Like, for example, Millipore has one, many other, LeMaitre has one, et cetera, but this is the first common one we've had, where it's common feed, or combined feed to a common.
Based on everything you have seen, do you have any recommendations to the board?
As outlined in the conditions, in the proposed conditions, the only, as Mr. Buckley noted, each individual tenant will need to come before the board if a biosafety regulation requires a biosafety permit. And the only other unique thing is that not only will we require hazardous materials registrations from each of the tenants, but also from the owner operator of the wastewater neutralization system.
The reason I ask these questions is because we have people online, and I just want to make sure that they get the full story before we vote. Does
Appropriate.
anyone else have any? I have a few questions, but
Just one, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
maybe two. So is this are you looking to have one tenant in this building, or are you looking to have multiple?
It could be one, it could be multiple.
Yeah, whatever.
The reality of the situation is that most of these buildings now that are being permitted in this region, as well as Cambridge, or they have multiple tenants. I mean, that's where, it's nice to have one user, but you're starting to have as the industry in this area matures.
So what other changes are you doing to the facility other than the centralized water management? Is it, like, what are you doing to the building other than that, before you get a tenant in there?
Sure, so the process and the reason for applying for the lab special permit is we do have to upgrade the building infrastructure overall to prepare and be ready for a lab tenant. So in addition to the centralized wastewater approach, there'd be an upgrade to the building electric capacity, which is pretty limited. It's already fairly capable, so there's a little bit of an expansion of the electric room. There's some additional HVAC capabilities that are installed throughout the building. So there'll be, in an office building, it's a common, you have air supply, but it's sort of a common air return process. In a lab facility, you have dedicated exhaust, and you have fresh air, much higher fresh air requirements. So that infrastructure will be included and installed in the building.
Awesome, thank you. No other questions, Mr. Chairman. I'm supportive of the product. Gutierrez always does a good job in the town.
No questions for me?
Okay, current use is office right now, is it empty?
Yeah, the office building has not been occupied since the beginning of the pandemic, and the current tenant there has indicated that they will not be returning. So I think the tenant has merged with some other companies, and so for all intents and purposes, it's sitting vacant, unused at the moment.
I just want, in your mind, I'm just kind of interested, can you define what you think is light manufacturing?
Sure. So the reason, and I'll defer to my counsel here, but the reason that's included is because of the planned development district that's included in is an older definition of some of the zoning. The light manufacturing that we're talking about is really just limited, associated with a lab user that might actually make some minimal amount of medical product, drug product, that might be used for testing or other purposes. There's no mass production, there's no other manufacturing anticipated, but because it's not otherwise covered elsewhere. How did I do?
You did all right.
All right.
The reality too is that these buildings require a lot of capital investment. You have lenders that will look at this, and you want to make sure that you have the appropriate usage there so that everyone feels comfortable.
The question we get all the time, security, you going to have different security, updated security, or is you going to leave the security to the tenants?
So each tenanted space will be secured by the tenant. All lab spaces will be locked and controlled by the tenant, but there will be some common area in the building, the entry lobby, if you will, that will be open typically, 9 to 5, or it probably is more like 7 to 6 or 8 to 6 that will have open access, but all of the tenanted spaces will be controlled.
Okay, good. This is going to the planning board for their next meeting. You will continue it again? Or you didn't?
We didn't start, that's correct.
You didn't start because of some issues, okay.
Yep.
So we need this recommendation to the planning board with them. And last, Mr. Buckley, your colleague is here?
Oh,
Yeah, that's our environmental health and safety consultant and advisor.
I always try to acknowledge someone who's sitting in the back of game.
Yeah.
Would you like to make any, any statement?
I don't have any statement.
You have nothing at all? Anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Okay.
see, I teach my colleagues to speak. Be recognized.
Well, I
No,
mean,
she was just there in case there were any more detailed questions that
You bring a
Ray Moore
professional-
from Safety
We
Partners.
wanted to be
professional,
prepared.
I want to acknowledge.
We
it.
wanted to be prepared.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, a well-known entity, Mr. Weisrop, Mr. Buckley have been before us many, many times. I have no concerns about this process. I appreciate the upgrade to benefit our community. I make a motion to approve the special permit for 10 Corporate Drive.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Wayne
Saltzman.
Dr. Wayne Saltzman, spit it out. Second by Vice Chair David McSweeney. All in favor? Aye. 5-0. Have a wonderful holiday.
The same to you. Before I leave,
Thank
can I
you.
make a comment? The work of this board, as well as your staff, you'd be surprised how Burlington is now so attractive to this industry, which, what, 5, 6, 7 years ago? No interest, people would step over this community. And it's become a real cluster and attractive alternative to some of the other locations closer to the city. And what that does is stabilizes your tax base, as you all know, so.
Dawn, please add that to the minutes.
But,
Mr. Buckley said something very positive about our board, and I'm running
And I
for
believe-
re-election.
I believe I heard him say something about my being able to drive his Porsche.
anytime you want.
Good night, thank you.
Thank you. And everyone stay healthy.
Yeah, appreciate
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Happy holiday.
Happy holidays.
And we'll have comments to planning board.
Yes.
See you soon.
Okay. Discussion. 2022 meeting schedule. I'll note that I went through it for religious holidays, and I went through it for everything else, and I have no issues with that. Does anybody have an issue for the 2022 schedule?
No
If
issue,
not, I'll
no
ask
issue
for
for me.
motion.
I make a motion to accept.
I have a motion by Dr. Salzman, second by Mary Beth. I was gonna say, you both are going
Oh,
like this.
okay, I said it.
Second by Mary Beth Welch. All in favor?
Aye.
Good, that's good. Thank you I know that's a lot of work looking for all the dates and
Sarah did it all, yeah.
And that's great that you get
Sarah,
credit.
thank you
No,
very
no.
much. Last, I told Sarah that we thanked her, and Sarah, we're thanking you again. Staff reports, environmental engineer. Christine, do you have anything to report?
No, I'll just take any questions if you have them.
Questions?
I'm glad to see that things are back to where you can just do the material safety data. Or the safety,
Hazmat, yeah.
the safety stuff. That's good.
Yeah,
Glad to
I'm
see
enjoying getting back to doing those inspections and not taking COVID complaints.
The water tower on Center Street, what work are they doing on that?
Taking down antennas and putting up new ones.
Oh.
Or not antennas, but
Cell-
cell tower
cell-
equipment.
cell-
Cellular cell tower
Cells.
equipment, yeah.
Cells, gotcha.
I have a couple of questions. 7 Barnum Road, where are we? Did you?
Is that for the director? Or is that?
No, it was a-
Chris, either one could answer, yeah.
There was no cause to go out there recently, because we haven't gotten a significant level of rain to go look at anything.
It is a formal complaint now?
It is.
Okay.
It's open, and I have communicated that I will be out there the next time there's, significant amount of rain.
And 3 Van de Graaff, what is going 3, and Protogene?
So 3 Van de Graaff is looking to do much the same as you just heard Mr. Weiss describe for 10 Corporate. They're looking to retrofit that building, existing building, for laboratory life science use, which includes HVAC and electrical upgrades to the building. To my knowledge, they don't have a tenant at the time, at this time. The Protogene, they are looking to go into 4 Burlington Woods, which is also owned by Gutierrez, but they actually did the upgrade to that building several years ago. But they are right now doing their analysis as to whether or not they will require a biological safety permit from us. And so they'll be before you, either for a special permit and/or both. We've got several buildings in town that are looking to modify existing buildings from office space to life science. And I just found out today that the proposed building at 25 Network Drive has a proposed tenant. Life science tenant. That's
Keeps us-
the,
Keeps us very busy.
it will.
We predicted that.
We did, you did.
I did. Anyway, we predicted that, and let's think, okay. Anybody else?
I have none for Christine. No, thank you.
Thank you.
If not, could I have a motion to
So
approve?
moved.
I have a motion by David McSweeney, seconded by Andrew Sheehan. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Now, the Director of Public Health will do the same thing we always do. We have the supervisory nurse, the health agent, which is Marlene Johnson's report, the associate health inspector, and then the Director of Public Health. So we'll take the first three together and we'll approve them all together. Do you have anybody have any questions to Susan about the supervisory nurse, supervising nurse? We got any vaccine left?
We do. So if anybody wants flu vaccine, they can call the Board of Health office. Yeah.
Okay. How about the health agent? Anyone the health agent? She's done 20 inspections in just a couple of weeks. Terrific.
Full-time, yeah, it's great.
Any other questions? Anything interesting about the inspections? Anything we should know about?
She's working on, so she is working on a grant opportunity. She submitted a grant for the FDA. It's called, there's 9 regulatory standards, I guess what we want to call them, is that the FDA recommends that you go over to improve your inspections, improve the way you do things, and streamline things with the federal government, with other states, and with other health departments in our state, so that everybody is doing it the same way. So Marlene is doing a great job on going through those standards, and she's working with Sam. So she's gonna come to a meeting, probably at the beginning of next year, once we get approved for the grant, and hopefully we will. And she'll explain it more to the board at that time, but she has submitted the grant application, and we're just waiting, to see whether or not it gets approved, but it will allow us to purchase equipment, for training for staff, to have a mentor in another state, maybe another state, most likely, because it will be part of this federal program, to work with our staff and to go over the standards and make sure that we can always improve. So it's just a great way to do that. And so Marlene's doing a lot of good work on that.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, the associate health inspector, anything going on?
I think the same, she's continuing to work on doing her inspections. With COVID, since we skipped some time going out there, I think they need to get back into the swing of things. We're finding a lot more violations, and hoping that, once they realize we're back out there and we're coming back regularly now, that, they'll get back to the way, at least back to the way it was, so.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Lord Barron, I've noticed them on the last several inspections. Is there an ongoing issue, or is it individual tenants?
It's individual tenants.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, because there's a lot of apartments there, I guess, and, yeah.
But it's not with the complex itself, it's individual.
Yeah, it's individual units that call about certain issues. I don't know which ones she had this time.
Yeah, it was on
but-
Sam's, but I noticed it on the last couple as well. It just kind of struck with me, that's all.
Yeah, it's probably not the same one, because they usually get resolved fairly quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions okay, the last is Director of Public Health. Is there anything you want to report on before we go into questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to, as you mentioned in the beginning of the meeting about the COVID cases going up, we are seeing that on our level. The Massachusetts Contact Tracing Team is stopping case investigations as of November 30th, so they're all gonna be going back to us. So, usually Mondays are the difficult days, 'cause I don't know if they do a dump over the weekend or what, but we get a lot of cases on Mondays. And I have been sending a lot to the CTC, so now I'm looking at how we're gonna handle those cases and do case investigations. It's very different now, than it was in the height of the pandemic. So it's a different, we do it a little bit differently. We're not calling people back. People are not as sick as they were, in the height of the pandemic, so we don't really need to do that as much. But we are making sure that they understand the quarantine and isolation requirements. And usually that's with one initial phone call, whereas before we were doing an initial phone call, we were calling in between to follow up to see how they were feeling, and then we were calling at the end to make sure that their symptoms were gone so that they could come out of isolation and quarantine. So we're gonna scale that down, and we're gonna do the one initial phone call now as part of the case investigation. We hired a part-time contact tracer, who's gonna assist with the case management. His name is Harrison Lang. He's a public health student. He's gonna be coming to our meeting hopefully in January, just to talk about what he's doing. But for the month of December anyways, he's gonna work part-time on doing case investigations, and he's all trained. We just need to get him up and running on Maven so that he can start doing that. I'm also looking at reaching out to our MRC nurses to see if we can get some of them on board. We won't be able to get them on Maven, that's the thing, because you need a town email address to get onto Maven. They won't allow it unless you have an official email, and we can't get all of our volunteers an official email address. So the plan is to get them to do the phone calls, write it down on paper, and then Sarah, who is on Maven in our office, will be able to enter in the data. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to get through the month of December if things don't get out of hand. And then in January, DPH on their local calls are talking about the possibility that things may be changing in January. So I'm not sure what contact tracing, case management is gonna look like come January.
Is this appropriate at this time with the numbers going skyrocketing, that disbanding CTC?
Yeah, they've been saying they were gonna do it for a month or so, and I think it's that they haven't re-signed the contract with them, and I don't know, yeah. I mean, it's gonna be a big burden on us, on other local health departments, to have all of these cases now. We're gonna have to investigate them. What they're saying is, scale it down to the one phone call. Well, we've been doing that for a while, doing the one phone call, because we didn't feel it was necessary to, at this point, to do what we were doing before in the height of the pandemic.
Should we be speaking to our state representatives and asking them why they're doing it now?
I bet they don't know.
Thank you.
Chair.
Please.
Um,
First of all, before you do, Harrison has been our intern for,
Yes, he's been, not too long, he, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks, and then I kind of recruited him for this paid position to do the contact tracing. He's
just
really
wanted to make
quick
sure
and-
we put
yeah.
things in perspective. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Interrupted you.
Oh, okay. Susan, under the investigations, can you just give me a little, give us some details on the 311 Farm Drive? I just, noise, what does that come into public health?
Yeah, so, it was a complaint about noise.
Okay,
So noise isn't covered under the housing code. So it's not really a housing code issue. Constant noise could be a nuisance type of issue if it was loud type of noise. In this case, it's not, it's, what the complainant has described as low-frequency noise. I'm still looking into that,
okay.
so I'm not sure if it's gonna be, we're kind of,
You're
I don't know if
still
there's a
under investigation.
regulation that falls under, I haven't
Yeah.
really found one yet. So, I'm told that there may be a DEP regulation that boards of health have the authority to enforce, but we would need to have special equipment to see if it falls under that. And all this. But
You know what's
we're
causing the
still
noise?
looking. Well, it's a unit, and it's a HVAC unit in someone else's apartment. And we haven't had any complaints from anybody else that it was an issue, even the person that's living in the apartment, so. And I did speak to the management, and they had somebody come out and check the unit, and they sent me the report that the unit is running as it should.
Thank you. And the second, just a little bit more detail on 111 Middlesex Turnpike drainage, what's
That's
that
the
about?
large puddle that was out there that Dr. Saltzman mentioned, and we're still looking into that. We have been working with that for a long time, and what they initially did was look at the drainage basin and have it cleaned out, which was a big job, and they did it. But it's still an issue,
not
it's
what
still a
caused it.
problem.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going back to them now. They do have an order of conditions with the Concom, so I'm trying to go that route through the Concom and get the Concom to actually get them to kind of give us the drainage inspection reports, because on a yearly basis, they were supposed to provide reports on the drainage system. And I haven't gotten that yet. So I'm waiting for that to kind of see, what our next steps would be. But if we can't provide that, they still have an order letter open with the Board of Health, and they have to, fix the problem. Right now, if you go out and look at there's a catch basin, and it's not draining. And there's water covering up the catch basin. So if we get a large amount of rain, I imagine the puddle is gonna come back. It wasn't just a puddle, it was significant with ducks and geese in it, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Susan. That's it.
Anybody
Mr.
else?
Chair.
I got a bunch. First, something is going to happen December the 6th.
December the 6th, yes, our Associate Director of Public Health will be starting December 6th.
Are
Mike
we
Green.
going to have a welcoming at some point?
Yes, that morning, we'll send an invitation around to the board members, but probably I think we said 10 to noon, just to allow any employees who want to come by and say hello to stop in.
Flu clinic report review, almost 91%, 90.9%, excellent.
Oh, was that on the survey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know me,
Yeah, I
I
read
do all
that.
the statistics on everything, 91%.
Oh, that's good, yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of positive feedback. Most of it was about, I think most of the problems stemmed around the software, which is to be expected, I guess,
Yes, some very minor, The test and stay in school program, do we have any insight?
We're not really involved in that.
Except take the complaints.
That's all we do.
Yeah, so they have been, the test and stay program, if you're not familiar, is that if a student comes up positive, their contacts can stay in school so long as they get the Binex Now testing every day for 7 days, and then they stay in school. The thing is, if they're true contact, they're not supposed to be going places outside of school either. But, we try to inform them of that. Again, as these things change, my hope is that things shift more to personal responsibility and people realize, I need to keep my kid home and this is the date that my kid can go back, or even for myself, I'm gonna stay home and this is the day I can go back, so that, you don't have the Board of Health calling you, forcing you into isolation and quarantine. And in the beginning, I think it was different because people didn't know. Most people now know, what isolation and quarantine is, what they need to do. In the height of the pandemic, we had a lot of confused people, and, making that phone call and providing them with help and support, I think was really important. Maybe not so much now, but, so that's why I'm thinking things will shift as we move along, because as we all know, COVID's here to stay. It's not gonna end, so.
Last question. Coming up in the next 2 weeks, we have 2 major subcommittee meetings. Actually, 1 meeting and 1 subcommittee meeting. One is on the water treatment plant upgrade. To let everyone know that there is a subcommittee meeting with DPW and the town engineer and others to talk about the new upgrade for the Mill Pond station upgrade to do something about the PFAS in our water. And there is a $10 million or so expenditure to correct that problem, and we will be meeting, myself and subcommittee member David McSweeney on that. The other is a question plus, and that is, as we were told at the last meeting, that the Conservation Commission has proposed major changes in our stormwater regulation, and which would affect this Board of Health significantly. There is a joint meeting coming up, and what is that, December? I don't have it in front of me, it's on my phone. Anyway,
Eighth.
I don't think it's landed on a date yet, has it?
now, the question is, it's a meeting with COMCOM. Were all members of this board invited, or just some of us?
Just chairs and vice chairs.
Chairs and vice chairs.
Although it is a posted meeting, it's not, I mean.
That's why I asked.
Yeah.
Can we invite the other members if they would like to show up?
Yeah, I mean, it's posted,
public
it's an open meeting, yeah.
Now, and can you also please, when you let them know, send them a copy of the proposed changes in that regulation? And we're gonna discuss it, whether we agree, disagree. We're gonna vote on it at our next meeting, whether we will support it or non-support it. But it will change the way we do business here. And I wanna make sure that everybody understands what we're gonna be voting on at that meeting. Yes, no, support, not support, or just be neutral on it. So I just wanna, yes?
Mr. Chairman, could you just edify me on, or in our community, on what the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction is regarding stormwater?
Well, to be honest with you, I just got the changes late this afternoon and have not had an opportunity. But that would,
From a 30,000-foot level.
for 35, they will take over.
Well, they currently have an erosion and sedimentation control bylaw, which is part of the town's bylaws. And what they're proposing is changing, or editing, amending those bylaws. So they already have the role there in the stormwater through those bylaws.
I thought that we were the last word on drainage.
Yeah, they're trying to expand their bylaws to include other things that it doesn't include today. Right now, it's under, as Susan was saying, sediment and, what was it, sediment?
Erosion and
Erosion and sediment.
That I could
I
understand.
could understand that
Yeah.
too, especially if it's abutting
Sure,
conservation.
of course.
But they're looking now at standing water and drainage and those types of things.
Well, I guess that'll put us back to one meeting a month.
Well, the issue is.
As relates to, not for subdivisions or
Oh, but
building
yeah,
code
but
changes.
that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
So I think it's really important that if you can possibly make that meeting.
No, Ross, that's the reason why we're having
At
this.
what time is it? What time is the
I
meeting?
believe it's at 2.
It's at 2 o'clock. We're meeting with them. I'm sure that it's gonna be very interesting, and we'll see how it goes. I have charged our staffs, particularly our director, I'm saying this publicly, that I want to make sure that if any changes are made to that regulation, people in this community are still protected against flooding, still protected about the way they do things, their way of life, their quality of life, and I want to make sure that we're not worried about buildings as much as we're worrying about people. And I just want to make sure that any changes does not impact that from public having a voice and a place to voice their concerns. I mean, you asked a question today, and clearly you didn't get an answer. And about 111
Yeah, but you say regulation, you mean bylaw.
Bylaw.
I love
Bylaw.
it.
I'm sorry.
This is the Conservation Commission's bylaw.
Bylaw.
The Board of Health is mandated by the state to uphold regulations in our municipality.
However, this will impact that significantly.
So I don't get that, so that'll be interesting to go
Boards of health have a lot more
More power,
authority,
right?
yeah, in that they don't have to go to town meeting to get a bylaw voted. A board of health can make a reasonable public health regulation on its own, yeah.
So that is, it clearly will, based on what I looked at. Now, is that a good thing? I'm not sure. I just want to make sure that people in
Yeah,
this
and
county.
I think our point is that it causes confusion to the citizens, well, to us too, but just to citizens, who do they go for,
Sure.
go to in front of? And
Sure.
one supersedes the other, but they certainly conflict with one another.
Yeah.
How do you get anything done?
For instance, Barnum, the Concom has made orders. However, it's not, it may or may not, depending on your investigation, be working or not working. But if in the present state, if it's not working, and I'm not sure that's true, and we then, we then create an order, we would be ordering against what the decision of Concom is. It makes it very complicated.
sense, yeah.
So I don't know how this is gonna work. It may be quite positive. It may just help everybody. I just don't know. But I want to make sure that the board understands that there may be some changes. It may be very, very good. I don't know. But we need to go to a meeting. They're gonna be voting on it to present it to town meeting the following day. We're gonna vote on it in one way, whether to support the following week. But I want to do that, and hopefully we can work together. I look forward. Larry Cohen is an outstanding member of the Conservation Commission. He's an outstanding chairman. He's been doing it forever, and he's a professional in that area. And we have always had a wonderful relationship, and I want to keep that. But I want to make sure that we're all know what our responsibilities are going forward. So I've already had a number of calls about it, so. That's it. Do we have?
Motion to approve the director's report?
I have a motion by Dr. Saltzman to approve the director's report. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mary Beth Welch. All in favor?
Aye.
That's 5. Well, we got through in less than 45 minutes. Thank you all. I'm wishing you all a wonderful holiday, a safe holiday. Be careful. And with that, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by David
David
McSweeney,
McSweeney.
second by Dr. Saltzman. All in favor? Aye. Good night. Thank you.
Have a nice
Good night, everyone.
Have
Be
a nice
safe.
holiday.
Aye.